All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And tonight, I have a very special guest. His name is Brandon. He's from the Hawks Nest YouTube channel. He goes by @SeahawksNester on Twitter. And we are going to talk a little bit of NFC West tonight, specifically the 49ers and the Seahawks. Gotta be the most hated rivalry right in the NFC West. But I think we're going to play nice. He seems like a good guy. We had some fun backstage. So, Brandon, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing great, Jay. And since I know we barely know each other, but I'm going to go call you Jay at this point because I feel like we're already brothers of another mother at this point. But no, I think we can keep it pretty civil. It's always going to be a little tense between us. We just got to accept that. It's always going to be right there. I think I've been around plenty of Niners fan. I've been through the country there on there. So I get it. We all know the noise. And it's begotten out of still, I think it maybe is not as live or lively as it was a little in the early 2000s, but it still is sitting there like embers burning in a fire. You still have a little bit of it just going at any point in time. It could go off. You get yourself a forest fire going. So it just comes with the territory. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let me tell you, the chat is already going bonkers back and forth. Niners, Hawks. I think we already got a super chat before we even started. So let me at least give some love for that. Randy McDaniel says, throw this in the kitty, son. You have some bail money. Hold on a second. We got something customary for whenever we get a donation around here. So let me give some love. Hold up a second. Hey, I appreciate it. No matter how it comes, I appreciate it.
That's my boy Randall coming in strong. He comes in hot like that. He's always very kind in that realm of things. What's up, Randall?
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, good. So listen, before we get started on the topics tonight, why don't you just tell us how you became a Seahawks fan, how long you've been a Seahawks fan, and then just a little bit about what people can expect from your channel.
Yeah, it goes back with me pretty far. I've got the old cliche story of the mom telling you that she had cartoons turned on and walked away and came back, and I'd flip the channel to football and turn the cartoons back, walked away, came back, flipped it to football. And I had all of the history with the family who loved Seahawks locally. I'm from the area, so I had a lot of family who loved it growing up as it had just kind of burst on the scene. Then I can remember being a fan as I remember coming into consciousness. So it was never really a moment that I changed over to it. It was just a part of me. I feel like I've even got the old picture where I'm hanging with dad in the family photo and I'm literally wearing a Seahawks jersey, and I don't even remember that picture. So it's been a long trek for me, and definitely it's been a wild ride and not the greatest of rides through time. It's been better lately. But it's basically just following it throughout that time and celebrating it now. And I started my channel up being a guy that I felt like I had a lot of, because I've been a fan for so long and I'm getting so damn old. Sorry, I'll try to keep the cussing down. I know.
No, you're good, man.
But because of that, I'm trying to, at that point, look through the lens of history a little bit, try to provide a little bit of a view from more of a 30,000 mile view of things rather than being caught up in the heat of the moment, and always have a little bit of perspective with it. And then by that being passing down a little bit of wisdom down onto the people that might listen, giving them a perspective that they don't normally hear. So when it comes to doing like live streams or breakdowns, that's where I'm really trying to get to. Is we're all going to ride a little bit of the Homer train to a degree. That's inescapable. Comes with your fandom. Certainly going to come with a fandom and creating a YouTube page. But I'm going to try to be as real as I can. And even if that's going to be sometimes at the detriment of, let's say, generating subscribers or making everyone happy. It's sometimes about trying to, for me and my channel, it's about a little bit getting to the truth. / a little historical perspective. I do little documentaries on games, greatest moments in Seahawks history is what I call it. So I've got these little games I do with narrations and breakdowns and graphics and stuff. So it's got me.
I checked you out and you do a fantastic job first and foremost. So I mean, obviously, I'm not a Seahawks guy, but you're very entertaining, man. I love the edits that you do. I think that you engage your fan base real well. You do a fantastic job. And also, I do appreciate that you keep it real, because that's one of the things that I like to do. And sometimes, the people in the community aren't the biggest fan of it, So it is what it is. I'm going to be a fan for sure. The thing that I always say is my only job as a fan is to root for the product on the field once the season starts. Yeah. But during the off season and in between games, if I think better decisions could have been made, then I can call it out. Like, it's totally within the realm of being a fan. And a lot of people are not fans of that. but it's just the way that I am. I'm going to critique it and be very, very honest. So I'm glad that you seem to do the same with your team and your fan base as well.
Well, I checked out your channel as well. And that's why one of the reasons I really was hyped to come up on this show, because I'm always going to gravitate towards, in the same way we accept 49er fans in the chat. I mean, I do. I can't always say for my chat. You can't control those guys. They're yeah, wild in there. But I accept every fan's coming in there because it does give you good perspective. It does round out your knowledge on it. And the more knowledge that you gain, the better you really understand what you're looking at and seeing out there, and the less guesswork you're doing. And I don't operate from the authority angle of things, that we can't understand what's happening out there, or we can't have an opinion because we weren't on the sideline or we didn't play on the field. I've been watching football for over 30 years. So if that's worth nothing as far as, and watching it closely and with care and trying to understand it, I come from an engineering background, so I like to peel things apart and to understand why they work and how they work. And I apply the same thing here. And that's to me, the fun part about doing these channels, is that you got the chat coming in with them as a brain trust as well. And I call it like a think tank is what you kind of develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the big reason why I reached out, is I want to get a real perspective, and it's very easy to get in your own bubble and think the thoughts that you have. And basically, whoever you're surrounded by, a lot of times that's the think tank, right? And so for me, if I can get outside that bubble and get a completely different fan base's perspective, just to keep it real, I think that that's good for everybody involved. And hopefully I can provide that for you as well. Maybe it's, a little bit different than what you guys think of your team, or maybe it's the same, who knows? But I think over the course of the show, that's what we're going to figure out. And I think it'll be good for both sides.
Yeah. And disagreement's not the end of the world. I operate from the standpoint of that. It's okay to have disagreement, especially if it's intelligently thought out and you've walked through at least a logical train of thought to arrive there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's just jump right into it, Brandon. Why don't you go ahead and grade the Seahawks offseason? And if you know enough about the 49er offseason, if you want to go ahead and grade that as well, feel free, my man.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research on the background of course, watching you guys through the off season. So I can definitely give you a little bit of a feel for that, where I'd stand with them. I give my Seahawks probably, I gravitate a little bit. I'm not going to try to already hedge my bets here. I'm going to give you a B+, but tell you it goes to an A- if you utilize up every bit of cap space that remains to potentially be used up. We'll get down the road of how much there actually does exist and sits there. There's going to be a couple of markers for it. But if you use up every inch of it, if you actually go get the extra couple players via trade before the trade deadline, start a training camp, make a trade deadline deal, then I will be able to push up into an A- territory. I put it about a B+ right now because they've still been a little bit conservative with that wallet. Sitting on $8 million. You could convert Russell's base to bonus at any time. That's $10 million more. I mean, you're sitting on $18 million in a go-for-it season. That's not going to allow me to put you into an A point grade until you fully utilize that out, but B+.
Okay. Let me ask you about this, because, you guys let go of, at least from afar, your best corner. And then you brought in a guy who, from the 49ers fan base, like, we couldn't get rid of Witherspoon quick enough, right? And now he's probably going to start for you guys. How do you think losing Griffin and then also replacing him with Spoon, how do you think that plays out for you guys in the secondary?
Yeah, I think that it's been interesting sometimes to watch, and not just it's more interesting nationally to see the opinion of Shaquille Griffin, and it surprises me more than it even does with the fan base, because so much of the fan base has liked him for so long, and I haven't. And then to see somewhere this offseason where it's almost like a guy's reputation raises, and I almost think it's almost qualitatively being done because of the $14.5 million he's averaging per season as a corner, and less to what people have seen on the football field. He's not a bad corner. He was here for 4 years. 3 of those years, he played at below league average as a cornerback. 3 of those seasons. One season, which was his 3rd year, he played a little bit above and was a Pro Bowl alternate. But as you know, in this defense that you play a lot of cover 3. And it's not the easiest defense on cornerbacks to play, because it tells them first and foremost, you must protect against the deep ball, and then go to your secondary stuff. Take away the post, take away the slant. Then you basically attack when you know you're clear over the top. Well, the problem is not every guy can process 2 things at once. You can take a Sherman who can process that. He can route read. He can go fall back on his film study and say, hey, here's a moment I can jump this route. Here's a moment I can go get mine. But when you have a corner like Shaquille who plays in that scared state and is not that, I just didn't see a lot of football intelligence on the field where he's going to cover it up deep, but that's all he gives you. That's it. That's what he's giving. He's going to give up every post route in front of him, every crosser in front of him, every other route. He's given up every comeback route. He's not going to be there. And when he gets an interception, it's not usually because he's jumped a route, but because the quarterback's thrown behind the player or somebody's tipped a ball. And so I don't hold Shaquille in the same acclaim as far as his value. And if you look last year, I know a lot of people don't like analytics. We can maybe talk about where your stance is on it. I don't hold it as the end all be all, but I just use it to fit into what I've seen with my eyes. My eyes tell me that Shaquille. What is the thing? Well, it says he was a 65 last season, been a little lower than that most of his career. Let's bend this to Achille Witherspoon. And I'm long-winded, by the way, Jay, so I take a round to get on this. But we take to Witherspoon last year, a guy who came in the NFL very young. And we're going to get this a little with the Lance talk on this. You get a guy who comes into the NFL 20, 21 years old versus a guy who comes into the league at 23 years old. That is 2 extra years of development. And it says something if you get a guy at 21 coming in that it might take him a little bit more time to shine and fully bloom. And I don't know if that's the point where Witherspoon is at. But when I look at him last year, he's coming off his best season as a pro. The injury thing is still a problem. I'm not expecting anything sensational, but here's the bottom line for me within this scheme. You play zone-centric a predominant amount of the time, and most of the time beyond that, you ask him to play cover 3. It doesn't really having a good corner helps, but it's not the same as having a 3-4 attacking scheme with man-on-man on the outside, and you need that guy on an island, and you need him to take away the best receiver, and you're on your own, buddy. You better hold on your own. You know, safety help over the top. It's just not really. You're kind of wasting money spending on a corner in this defense, is my opinion. I think you go on if you're going to run it the way we run, especially, which is traditional Carroll down to the core, not even your guys' hybridic wide 9 type defense where we're back in that 4-3 under stuff. So I'm hopeful of Witherspoon this year. I'll take Witherspoon at one year, $4.5 million versus paying multiple years at $14.5 million on Shaquille Griffin. And I'll call that a steal all day.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And it's crazy because I think you're right. The national thought on Griffin is that he's much better than what Seahawks fans seem to think he is. I remember when he left and being in Seahawks forums and seeing what the reaction was, I was shocked at how they're like, good riddance, see you later. You know, you're not very good anyways. We'll replace you. And, you know, I think the one thing that Seattle does a good job of, and this is, you know, something that unless you are a Seattle fan, you probably wouldn't notice, but they teach a very solid technique to their corners at the NFL level. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times once you get to the NFL, you learn most of your technique and footwork and getting better during the offseason. You have individual coaches that teach you these things. Teams are there to teach you a scheme and to put you in the right places, but the rest is really on you for the most part. The Seahawks don't do that. They do a great job of developing their secondary, and you see it across the board. Everybody that goes to Seattle does a really, really good job, or better than they've ever done from a secondary standpoint. And when they leave Seattle, they fall off. Unless, you know, Richard Sherman, he did well, obviously, but he's a great corner.
And so it wouldn't
yeah. And so it wouldn't shock me if Griffin falls off a cliff next year in Jacksonville. You know what I mean? So I understand the confidence, and I think that you guys have a little bit of reason to be confident. And I will say this, 49er fan, listen, we were happy to get rid of Spoon. You know, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But do not be upset and do not be shocked if he actually plays very well in Seattle because, like I said, the way that they coach up their secondary is second to none in the NFL, in my opinion.
I think it's salient points all down the line. I honestly, I would give you guys San Francisco kind of in the same lane of thing, having Saleh here and having even though you guys changed what you did up front, you still remained pretty much consistent in the tape I've watched and asking those corners to basically kind of do the same stuff. And they play the same way. It's playing disciplined. It's staying in it's not getting outside the box. It's always making sure you're taking that play away. And I think that he's going to do all right in our scheme. I'm not expecting the world. You give me above average to league average play with what I'm expecting to be really the benefit of this team, which is going to be the front seven, specifically the edge rushers on this team, specifically how much depth we have on them. That's the thing that I'm really going to, gravitate towards, thinking that'll drive everything. That makes the corners work that much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ethan's Tech World, again, they're just going crazy in the chat. And this is just one of the messages I pulled, but he says, Seahawks secondary is on a different stratosphere compared to the 49ers. Who do the 49ers secondary have? Well, I think one of the things when you, again, like I just broke down the Seahawks secondary and why I think that they're better than what people believe they are, despite the names that are there or are not there. I think the same can be said for San Francisco. And really, it starts with Jimmy Ward. I mean, Jimmy Ward is probably the most underrated safety in all of football, in my opinion. He does so much for this team, and he's asked to do so much that his stats are not going to jump off any page. But if you watch him play, he can cover anybody in the slot. He can shut down basically any tight end in the league. He can play cover one over the top. He can come down and he can lay hits. He can blitz. He can do a little bit of everything, and that's where it starts. You know, K1 is, as far as a nickel corner, is one of the best in the league. Verrett, if healthy, again, this is San Francisco, right? If healthy, Verrett is also a very good corner, probably top 12 to 15 in the league. So secondary can be very solid over in San Francisco. So
how do you feel about the secondary depth? I know with Verrett, see, here's my issue with Verrett, like, no doubt about it. When Verrett's on the football field, there's no doubt about it. He's a great player and he's going to get it done.
Yes.
That's the qualifier, though. Those the first part with him, because last year was the first time in his whole career that he's played a full 16-game season, really even come close to a full 16-game season. And is he going to be able to replicate this now? Another year, having only pulled it off once in 5-6 years in the league, and he would. But that's where my question goes. Okay, even if he doesn't, that's fine. If he can't, even if you're getting 8 games of Verrett, what do you guys have in that back pocket then when that injury situation does strike? Because I can go Witherspoon, I can go DJ Reed. Solid average. We can go maybe below average if we want to be just super unbiased. They're right up near it. But then I still got Trey Flowers, Pierre Desir, Damaris Randall. I've got guys that are bodies. They're not going to do much. They ain't gonna take things. They ain't Dion, but they can at least hold up out there. So give me who's kind of that I've missed a little bit on, because I did look a little bit on it. And you're right about Ward. One thing on Ward, just I want to say, because I looked a lot of tape on it before doing this show. You hit on all the points with him, and the fact that he's the modern NFL safety and that it's becoming positionless. And you need both of those guys to do both of those roles and not be able, I can only be in the box. I've got to be more out of your center field. No, he can do literally all those, and a great tackler on top. And he's physical as a taking away blockers. No doubt about everything you said. I agree 100% on board.
Listen, I think you bring up a fantastic point. And in fact, earlier on Twitter, I was having some back and forth with 49ers supporters, 49er fans, and saying, in an ideal world, and I've been saying this since the draft, Trey Lance is going to start week 1. I firmly believe that. But in an ideal world, Jimmy Garoppolo has to be let go, even if it means cutting him, because to your point, that's secondary if Verrett goes down, and it's more likely that he goes down than he doesn't go down, at least for a few games. They're going to have to rely on rookies behind that. Diamador Lenore, Ambry Thomas, and these guys may end up being good players, but there are guys out there like Steven Nelson, Brian Poole, that the 49ers, if they cut Jimmy G, save that $24 million, they could bring in, let's say, a Steven Nelson.
Isn't he more slot, though?
What was that?
Isn't Steven Nelson just slot specific?
No, he could do a little bit of both. Poole could do a little bit of both. Both of them are probably better as nickel corners, but they can do a little bit of both. There's other guys out there, veterans, Drake Kirkpatrick, guys like that, but they need to add veteran depth, in my opinion. The other thing is this. I think the 49ers have an issue at edge rusher as well. They have some good starting pieces, but the depth is much to be desired. And when you look at that 2019 49er team, it was created around that defensive line and the depth. They went 8-9 deep. Now, I think the interior of that line is great, but they could definitely use another edge rusher. Let's say a Justin Houston or somebody like that. So, yes, I'm right there with you. The depth is an issue in the secondary, and they've got to address it.
Well, it's the single thing for me as a Seahawks fan this year. We can go a little bit on the details of how they did it this offseason, where they've showed signs of it. But it's the single thing that I think rides this year for my Seahawks team is a sense of urgency, a sense of understanding that it's not that we have got our 2 and 3 year plan. And I know this is what a fan would normally say, but I've got a reason for this being this way, not just normally me wanting as a fan you to be aggressive. But you guys need to be aggressive here and go for it. When I look at the Niners, and here's the thing with Trey Lance, I'm going to tell you, full disclosure, I scout. I do a whole scouting channel as a side thing, and I looked at all the quarterbacks in this draft, and I just go off my gut on it, okay? And it's my little stupid opinion, doesn't mean anything to it. Trevor Lawrence was my number 1.
Yep.
Trey Lance was my number 2.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I never understood the Wilson thing. I saw holes in Fields' game, and Mond was mechanical, too mechanical, though he's got some real nice flashes to what he can do with a quick release. But I liked Lance and I liked his upside. My one, I love my qualifiers, but my one qualifiers was he did it at 19 years old. We get back to that age thing that we were talking about earlier. Young player coming in, takes him a little time, didn't play at all last year. And I think Trey Lance is a problem going probably into next year, but a real problem going into the future. So when I look through that lens, and this is my question to you in that sense of urgency, is Shanahan and company sitting there feeling a little comfortable and knowing that their jobs are secure, knowing that we can let this kind of develop and it'll be for the betterment of the team long term, but then at the price and the cost of this year?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I think that the team is better off in the long run by starting Lance early. And not only the long run when I talk about future seasons, but I talk about this season. If they can get into the playoffs, regardless, like let's say they make the playoffs, a full season of Trey Lance, because once you're in the playoffs, it's like season number 2. You've had a full season behind you.
Yeah.
I think a full season of Trey Lance and then getting to the playoffs is a lot more worrisome for opposing defenses and a lot more problematic for opposing defenses than Jimmy Garoppolo ever can be at his best.
Yeah. But you don't like the idea of doing like a Kaepernick thing, like you let one guy carry the water for half a year and then let the rookie come in when they don't have any tape. Now they only got a half season of tape. Now he gets in the playoffs and nobody's got anything of a way to really what his tendencies are or how to, I always thought that was an interesting move by Harbaugh at the time that people, everything kind of applauded overall for him doing that. But I like, because you give him that full season, he's going to hit the rookie wall. You'll get enough tape on him. Now you get to the playoffs and the tendencies. I did a little bit of research on quarterbacks in the last 10 years in the first round that have been drafted. There's been some success stories, but they all have basically the same kind of thing of right once they get to the playoffs, the gas is basically gone. The tank is empty. It's sputtering, and that's the thing I would wonder if starting him right from the jump in the start, as well as like, you think they would at least have flipped Garoppolo at this point for a 5th, 6th, 7th, even if that's what you could only get for him. You think somebody would at least throw that, and the price is not going to get better, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because this is, again, the whole offseason has been a debate. Trade Jimmy, who's going to start, who should start, and everybody has their opinion. As a Seahawks fan, when you're getting ready to face the 49ers, does Jimmy G strike any fear in your heart?
No, but I think that I think that there's bad matchups for certain quarterbacks. There's certain things that just aren't good. Like you're the backup you guys got that slices and dices us like a sous chef. Every time he comes in, the little guy with the scrunchy face, I can't remember. Yeah. And he always comes in and he's just, it's just surgical out there. And it's like, dear God, get that little man off the field now, please. But I think just watching him play, Garoppolo can't throw to the edges. So Seattle doesn't have to lean into their cover 3s, which means they can squeeze the underneath stuff, which is his bread and butter. I think it's just kind of a bad fit for him matchup wise. And look, to your point, I wouldn't have a problem going with Lance all season. Like I said, he's my number 2. Long-term is going to be great. I feel like you have to wait about a year or 2 to get to a spot where it's the impact is really going to offset some of the downsides you get with the rookie, and having seen Russell in his rookie year, and you get the good with the bad. And there's times that offense just cannot move an inch, and he looks confused and he's over his head, and it's all that. And then there's times where it's like, oh, this in the future is going to be magical. Look at this, what this is going to do, And the only reason Russell didn't hit that rookie wall in that 2012 season and actually had a little bit of playoff success, even though it kind of still pittered out, was because they were able to put that read option in halfway into the year. Remember, that was the Robert Griffin year where nobody knew. Everybody, it was, what's this? What is this thing? Who's this? So you were catching people off guard with that, and it made the offense tough for about a year and a half to stop. But people eventually solved that, and there's not really an equivalent going right now. It's that day's over a little bit.
Absolutely. And my biggest thing with Trey is I have been fortunate enough to interview his personal quarterback coach twice. And I learned a lot about what Trey brings to the table, and he had me sold before the draft that he was the right guy to take. I was ecstatic when it happened. And then obviously after the draft, we talked again and just talked about how much easier it will be for him to pick up that playbook than what people realize, because of the playbook that he ran at NDSU, along with protections and calling out blitzes, playing under center. a lot of the things that Shanahan's going to expect from him, he's going to be more ready for than really any of these quarterbacks if they had been in the same situation. The other thing is that Trey Lance already sat out a season. I do not believe that he should or can afford to sit out another full season like some people believe he should. And so, whether it's week 1 or week 6 or whatever, at some point he does have to play and he has to be the starter this season. If for the long term, it's going to be the right thing for the team. And yes, technically, people want to say that the Super Bowl window is open and it's now or never and all these other things. I don't think the 49ers are as in a win now mode as what people want to believe. And do I think they can make the playoffs with either quarterback? Yes. If they get there, can they win a game or two? Possibly. But that's it for me. Tampa Bay is so far above and beyond every team in the NFC to me that everybody's got to close a gap. And the way that I see the landscape of the NFC, some of these quarterbacks are aging, some are retiring. And I think next year is really that sweet spot for San Francisco that they can actually make some real noise and possibly win a Super Bowl. Now, I think they can win this division, but once they get to the playoffs, they are not going to be the scariest team in this division. And that's my overall thought about them.
So at the heart of my question to you would be, would you take better long-term development of Trey Lance in this season versus getting the best possible output for this season if you had to pick a lane? Which one of those two would you take?
I'm going long-term. I'm going long-term.
That's smart.
I'm going Trey Lance. Yes.
It's smart because I tend to agree with you. And when I look at their offseason, I'd probably put it actually right near the B+ area that I put Seattle's in. I do think, though, for the same reason I do knock a little bit of Seattle being, hey, you're a good team. Why aren't you going for it? There's teams putting their pedal down to the floor right now.
Right.
Why are you not one of those teams? And so I didn't exactly see that this offseason. And when I do look at there is a pathway I'll give you the pathway to dominance for them, which is going to be, of course, run-centric stuff. The same playbook you had kind of running almost with Garoppolo in the playoffs, not to that degree, like 7-8 attempts, but I'm talking like what he had in college, 18 attempts. He can work within structure, to your point. Shanahan's going to make the game easy on him by getting things that are going to be easy completions, easy throws, getting him in rhythm. All those things I think could allow him for immediate success. There's no doubt about it. It's part of why and then he's got the legs too, that's the part, a big guy that can run and really run, not just run and he can take a hit. He can carry some guys. He's out there dragging dudes on his tape. So I think he's got some great potential for long-term success to give you a little bit of return next year. But I think if you've got him rolling full year, and that's probably maybe a little why they're hesitant. I don't know this. I'm only guessing because I just don't understand why you sit with Garoppolo at this point if you're all in on Lance as they seem to be. And that's the thing I wonder is if he's like, well, maybe we still have him for the long term, but let's try to get up. We get through Garoppolo, we'll get like 6-2 because I'll just run the ball and have him run all of his Garoppolo-y stuff, and then I'll throw in the nuclear option, and then let the kid work. It's what I've been wondering on this because I always thought right around the draft. I'm like, all right, they'll move him here on the draft. Somebody will flip a 4 or 5 on him, call it a day.
I think a lot of it though too is a play in the locker room, right? And I think that this is something that can definitely be overlooked. Is I believe that the right thing to do is to let him outright win the job and show it to everybody, all the veterans on the team, that he is the right quarterback. And if you do that, then there is no locker room split. Jimmy did take them to the Super Bowl, regardless of what your thoughts are. That team went to the Super Bowl is what I'll say. I don't think he's the reason why, but that team went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy at the helm. And so if you just yank him, get rid of him, and put Trey in there and say, listen, this is the future. Well, if they struggle, you're going to have a split locker room or a locker room that's not necessarily the happiest. And then that hot seat definitely starts to become a thing with Shanahan if they have a losing season. However, if he comes in and outright wins that job, then he's got the full push of the locker room, regardless of what happens with the season. And then he can avoid a full-term hot seat type situation. So I think there's a little bit of strategy there because Shanahan has had 3 losing seasons. It doesn't matter why, injuries, the team wasn't good enough when he took over. Regardless of any of that, he's had 3 losing seasons in 4 years. And if he has another one and he doesn't play his cards right, it can get real dicey in San Francisco. So I think that he's playing it very, very smart. Yeah,
it makes sense. I could see that strategy, and you do want him to win it. That's no doubt about it. You don't want the quarterback having something given to him. So I could see it being it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense on that.
Pinora says Waldron and Ryan's first year as coordinators. Is that the X factor between our teams in the NFC West? And thank you, Seahawks Nester, for coming on. Well, I'll let you answer that. What do you think?
I tend to think for you guys, it's more to that thing we just talked about with Lance. And if you can get lightning in a bottle with putting him within a structure of offense, work a little bit off his legs and see if he can't be a dynamic in his first year. And there certainly is a potential that he could be so. He's got good playmakers. He's going to have a very run first centric line. You've got guys that can move people off the ball, no doubt about it. So that to me is more your guys' X factor, is if that can be tapped into. It can show flashes, I think. I don't know if it can fully consistently show, because I don't know if it'll be enough of a threat down the field and challenging in all the different ways you need to be challenged kind of on the back end to not come up and creep on the run, eighth man in the box, that kind of thing. Waldron, yeah, I've pointed to long pointed to that Shane Waldron with the Seattle Seahawks was our biggest acquisition of the offseason. The reason being is that we've been running a 1987 offense. We've been running Marty Ball. Okay. Let's just be real about it. All right. Schottenheimer's doing everything that his father used to do. I told you I go back to the 80s. Guess what? I had to watch a lot of Kansas City Chiefs when my Seahawks were in the AFC West. Got to see him twice a year. Got to see that offense twice a year. I got to see Ground Chuck go against Marty Ball. Do you know how lame watching a football game is when both teams will refuse to throw the ball through 3/4 of the football game? It's horrific. Yeah. And so I know very well what he was doing. And his whole MO was that when he came in here, here's my offense. He's a guy with a good plan A, not a good plan B, not a guy who can adjust. As you saw last year, what did we do? We started out the gate well, but then the back half, people solve us and we got no answer. He was that type of guy. And he's a guy, so not running like the end around stuff you guys run, for instance. This should be a key to every offense right now, is running those end arounds with wide receivers. That it is almost free money there every time. Run it 7 to 8 times a game, and you will end up having a guy average 6-7 yards a carry, in my opinion. Coaches go away from it for some reason. You'll watch them run it through 2-3 quarters. It's going magnificently, and then they're just like, let's just start throwing it and hammering on inside zone now. And that's not back to what was just working. They're not stopping it. Debo Samuel's running the edges here, man. Keep him going. It's hot, baby. And so we'd have Lockett going. The whole fandom knew Lockett's not getting the ball. You're not even going to fake it to him. You're just doing that for looks because you want to look like a modern offense. So now, and then also knowing, by the way, he inherited a 70% of his playbook from Carroll when he arrived. That was a little fact that slipped out this last year as well. So now you're going to a whole new playbook. You're going to 2021 playbook. You're taking the Bill Walsh, your guys' same roots that go all the way back to that 80s and all the little, Mike Shanahan here doing his little turns. And then Kyle is the offensive coordinator, and it gets to this far. It's McVay and now finally gets to this point. So we've updated our offense by 30 years. Should that have some immediate effect? Should that have some immediate return? Yeah, that's gonna help out a bit. I think it's gonna help out quite a bit. So it's absolutely the X factor. But hey, at the end of the day, he's never called a play either. He's an offensive coordinator who's calling his first play this year right now. And D'Amico's will be fine as long as, to your point, your front four can generate pass rush.
Yeah.
You guys are running like the same defense of us, except for in a basic wide 9. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's basically the same tenets are built in. You're just structuring it so your front four can get pass rush. Is that basically right?
So that's what it was. I think you're going to see a lot more cover 1 this year. I think you're going to see a lot more man-to-man. I think there's a reason that they didn't bring back Sherman. And when Sherman left last year, or got injured, that's what they went to because they couldn't generate a pass rush. Bosa was out, Ford was out, Sherman wasn't there, and they relied on cover 1 a lot just because Fred Warner can really suck up over the middle, and then Jimmy Ward can play deep over the top if need be, and Verrett's more of a man corner, Mosley the same, and so is K1. So I actually think you're going to see a lot of man this year from San Francisco. I think that you're going to see a lot of blitzing and a lot of man.
Gosh, man, I always, when I've got when I got a Bosa coming back, or if Ford can stay healthy, or an Eric Armstead, I'm not sure what to think with him because he gave you that great flash in 2019, and you look around the bookends of it, and he seems to be a little, because it's all there physically with him. He's got the length, the explosiveness. I mean, everything should be there for him to be taking the step forward. I don't think he was as good as Buckner, but I still, by the way, like that trade you guys pulled off last year. I thought that was smart roster building to make that move when you guys did. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. I saw Tim Jobs. I know Tim too, man. He comes in on the chat. What's up, Tim?
That's awesome. Yeah, we were just talking about cover 1 a little bit and, switching it up from the cover 3. Yeah.
That would be interesting then if they can pull it off. The one thing I don't like with the blitzing, though, when you have good pass rushers, you got a guy like Bosa, right? And he's setting a guy up and he's got that extra space. Are they staying to the wide 9 or are they crumpling it back in?
Yeah, I think they'll stay wide 9. I mean, Kosterik's still there as far as the defensive line coach. He's kind of been the mad scientist there and making everybody work. So I would expect the wide 9. And, I don't necessarily know if they're going to go crazy blitzes, but I think you're going to see a lot of crowding of the line and a lot more. I think they're going to be a lot more exotic than what you've normally seen. They're not going to be as straightforward at the very least.
Hey, I love that type of defense. You're attacking, you're coming downhill at them. My defense is more read and react. They're more, we're going to sit back and keep everything in front of us and keep it clear. You guys saw plenty of years of that with you, in San Francisco running something similar.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on the wide. If I was running a defense, I'd flash between wide 9 and traditional 4-3, just because the wide 9 can create so many of those holes, especially a gap inside that can just get attacked over and over again. That always gives me a little bit of concern. But when you get those blitzers, it's like you got a pass rusher setting up moves, and then you got a guy coming from my right blitzing this angle, and I got a guy we'll just go straight up and run a bull rush, Joe. Nick.
Right.
Well, what if I want to do my, my cool spin move back to the inside? Well, we got a guy coming through that gap, so you just got to stay in your lane and we'll get to the quarterback, and you're right. You got to do to what your personnel fit. That all those guys does fit to what they can play. It'll be interesting to see if they do that. Maybe that becomes more of a key than I thought then, because I thought they were going to stay a little more traditional.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, this is obviously his first year as a defensive coordinator. And, I'm just going off of what I kind of saw him transition to towards the tail end. And then based off the players that they let go versus who they brought back and then who they drafted, it just looks to me like they're going to be more of a man defense than what we've been in the past. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So let me know, is Seattle better this year, just on paper, than they were last year? Why or why not?
So the only two major losses that you can really point to on the team, real losses that have at least some legitimate things, the Shaquille Griffin one, which we covered, and which we, basically you're getting an equivalence for with Witherspoon. So it's hard to look at that as a true loss. But beyond that, the other guy was Jarran Reed. And Jarran Reed's another guy who, when you look at him and you see the 6 sacks number and you go, oh, well, he's a good 3-tech pass rushing defensive tackle. It's what he does well. But then you watch him and he's not really that, because you think of the 3-tech with the quick first step explosion, penetrate into the backfield, get a sack off quick pressure. He's more of the guy who relies on the ends to come around, push it back inside to him, and then he's going to clean it up. And while that's a useful skill, he was a guy coming out of Alabama who was supposed to be a purified 1-tech who would split double teams and you couldn't move him off his anchor. Well, he got moved off his anchor all the time. And then they had to move him to 3-tech because he just wasn't making a deal, and we got Puna in here. So I don't look at him as a huge loss. It's a little loss, I guess. We brought in Al Woods, which is not an equivalency by any means, but again, you're going to make do there. Gerald Everett's going to have a big impact. This is the best yak tight end that we've had in Seahawks history. We've never had a run after the catch tight end in our 40 years as an organization. It'll be interesting to see how, and he knows Waldron's scheme. He should hit the ground running with that, in my opinion. You brought everybody back from Carson brought back. We got Lockett onto an extension. You brought in Gabe Jackson as a guard, basically to flip out for Mike Iupati, even though he's going to play right guard and they're going to move Damian Lewis, which actually pisses me off. We haven't had a good offensive lineman drafted in Seattle in 10 years, right? 10 years. You haven't drafted one homegrown, and you grow and you gave him water, and he's oh, look at that. That bush is just, look at it. Oh my God. And then you go, that was a great season, wasn't it, coach? Yeah, it was a great season. What are you going to do with him next year? Move him to left guard. Oh, you're going to move him off all the 1-techs in the league, and Aaron Donald's over there. Yeah. Chris Jones is over there. Yeah, I know. But Fletcher Cox is over. Yeah, that's the thing that just boggles my mind with them on their offensive line and how they go after it. But theoretically speaking, you've got 2 guards that should be better than what you had a guard last year, and you lost nothing else across the top of it. We've got a lot of guys coming back off injury. I know we can talk a little bit about this. You guys were the most injured team the last year. We were the 5th most injured team in the NFL last year. And this is the little bit of why when people come to me, why are you so high on your team? Because we can have a year like you had in 2019 where you guys were relatively healthy in 2019, right, to get to Super Bowl. That same year, we were the most injured team in the NFL. But we didn't miss the playoffs. We made the playoffs. And we won a game. And we pushed Aaron Rodgers and Lambeau to the brink in the year that we had those injuries. And the reason we kind of lost that point is it was one injury. This one injury too many. You get to a point, no matter how good your team is, you go
it's
1-2
too
deep.
Much. Yep.
That's it. You're done. And so that's why I'm as high as I am on the team. I don't think that those two marks of being the fifth most, the first most, I don't think that's going to maintain at that same spot going forward. And we built a little bit more depth up to take over for it, but we're getting a lot of those injury guys back. You're getting Marquise Blair, a second rounder, back. Darrell Taylor, who was your second rounder last year, who didn't play a snap, is coming back now. You've got a variety of those kind of guys you're bringing into the fray that are not just guys that are, he showed out as a fifth rounder. This is a highly talented guy that just didn't see the field in Taylor's case because he had a rod taken out of his leg back in college and he had to heal it up. Yeah. And Blair had KJ Wright stumble into him like a drunkard in the second game of the season after he'd already made it. Oh, it's horrible, dude. He makes the tackle. Like Marquise comes in. He's finally in, right? He's been waiting to have his chance. Here I go. Comes in. I'm talking to 10 here, but throws the guy down. And here comes KJ Wright and just throws himself, his 35-year-old butt, into the play, just snaps the leg. And you're going, KJ, why? Why? Dude, I almost think it's the reason they haven't signed KJ back, honestly. Low-key. I'm low-key like that's still Carroll's just like, you son of a bitch.
Gosh, you guys have so many X-Niners over there. Just all the names that you're naming. I'm just like, oh my, X-Niner. You have
Gary Hyder.
Yeah, you have potentially 5 starters on that defense that are X-Niners. That's crazy.
Well, you guys started. You took Sherman. You took Malcolm Smith.
Yep.
And make no mistake about it. Carroll is, if anything, he'll be petty.
Yeah. And listen, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I think it's also a little bit of the respect the organizations have for each other and the way they do business. Certainly the way you guys had your defense running the same way we ran, that's going to make the players you run with that defense tantalizing, when they're looking at him to try to pick him up and bring him over. And I know with Witherspoon, when he was coming out as a draft, that was a guy that fit into our spectrum because we like those 6-foot corners that are long, that run 4.4, 4.5. That's going to be something Carroll's going to love all day because he'll go, I can train the rest of the stuff up. I can't train size, speed, length.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you, but from the 49ers perspective, the 49ers are better just because of the injury thing, right? Like that can't happen 2 years in a row, or at least I'd like to hope that it can't happen 2 years in a row. Not at that same level. 2019, they were pretty injured, but nobody was out for the season. They got everybody back. They missed 4, 5, 6 games here or there. But by the time they got to the playoffs and were able to actually make that run, they had basically everybody back that they needed. And so that was, it was very different last year. The most games missed, I believe, between COVID and injuries over any team in NFL history. So chances are that's not going to happen again. So that being said, yes, the Niners are better. The Niners are also better because they went ahead and addressed the offensive line. They got a very good center in Mack. They went ahead and drafted some guys that could easily make a difference on this line. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you're getting Bosa back. Ebukam, I believe, can fill that D forward role. I think the secondary, although it's not deep, again, just getting healthy, that's always a good thing. And then the running back and quarterback position, I mean, they added studs up and down both those spots, and I think that that's going to be a difference maker. So, yeah, I do. I believe that the 49ers are also better in 2021. And really, when I look at the whole division, I think everybody in the division's better. The Rams are slightly better because of the upgraded quarterback, but their depth is concerning if I'm a Rams fan.
So this has been an active debate with Ram fans coming into my stream time and time again on this, where and here's the thing, I just don't buy it. I went into this offseason believing Matt Stafford was underrated. The pendulum has swung to the other side for me.
It's too much.
In one offseason, it has swung from one thing where I'm like, I feel like this is no. It's gone too far. It's gone way too far. And it's like the hippie movement. I think when you look at the Rams, let's look at what they've lost. And they've lost strong safety, Jalen Johnson. Very important part of their defense. One of the best, and I agree with you, by the way, on Williams being one of the best slot corners in the game. Another guy right there with him, Troy Hill. Also gone. Michael Brockers has been a stalwart one tech for the Rams going back 10 years there. Samson Ekinbon, who I don't know if he's going to start for you guys because that's actually the linebacker core, is one of your guys' deepest places. He might be sitting on the bench to start this year. But that's still a loss for them. That's a starter that's lost for them. Austin Blythe, the center, gone. Gerald Everett, tight end, gone. Josh Reynolds, a useful receiver for them, gone. Backup running back, gone. We can go down the whole list here. But the point is you go, it's like a formula, right? You go Matt Stafford minus 6 starters equals better team, ?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm supposed to be believing here? Because I don't buy it. I'm not buying what they're selling. And frankly, where I put them is I think they're a game or two worse. I think you guys are a game or two better with some potential still above you to get better. And it's all in that key marker we talked about, being Lance's development and hitting the ground running and really being that. The pathway for you guys, I don't think is as plentiful pathways as is for us. Because we have a couple, we can maybe rely on a tough defense if our offense takes a little while to go, and we can have, or our offense be dominant if the defense takes a while. But for you guys, I think you truly are going to need Lance to be pushing forward and taking that step forward instantaneously to get the most out of this season. Long term, you guys are going to be dangerous with him. Number 2 quarterback in this draft. He was right there with me with Lawrence. The movement capability, running with strength. He's a guy who's going to be durable, I think, with that body, and he's got one of the best deep balls. He's got a Russell Wilson-like deep ball in his throws. He's got a moonshot deep ball, just explodes out of his hand. And it's long term, the guy's going to be awesome for you guys. It's so scary. I got to tell you, I went from a place of pure happiness and thinking you guys were getting Mac Jones, and I was going to be I was reveling, dude. I was reveling, and I was like, please God, let it happen, please. And then now they went for my guy then instead. Do you know what a turn that was when I was going from like, oh, all right, whatever. Good. You guys
listen, I already know, because if Mac Jones would have been the pick, oh gosh, I mean, 49er fans would have revolted. So I'm glad that wasn't it. 49ers Twitter was really on Justin Fields being the guy. And I think that everybody was good with Lance or Fields. And so, yes, I am so happy it wasn't Mac Jones. And I know you guys would have been ecstatic.
I would have done a whole video just celebrating. I just me sitting there sipping champagne, just laughing. I'm sorry, but it would have been that bad of a pick. It would have been that effing bad. It would have been just like Lance makes sense. Lance's upside. Lance's. You can't get this in a quarterback unless you're picking this high as far as this type of talent goes. But Mac Jones, you can find Kirk Cousins in other places of the draft.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Don't have to go up top. Don't certainly not have to give multiple first round picks for the honor. But hey, you guys were smart there. That's what I'm saying. The organization, I can't hate on the 49 organization because most of the moves that come down the pike do make sense, and I can understand what they're doing and how it fits into their philosophy, and one part works to the other part hand in hand. It does make sense, especially even down to picking this quarterback and how he fits.
So. Absolutely. All right. So I already gave an idea of what the 49ers need to add in the offseason, which is secondary depth and edge depth. What do you think, if anything, the Seahawks need to be looking at as they go to round out this team and maybe pick or pluck off of other rosters as they go through training camp?
Well, I've churned through a lot of this because we do so many live streams in the death of summer here where there's nothing going on. And the thing that stood out to me right now when I look at the rosters and availability of guys is, number one, the free agent stuff just kind of sucks. Geno Atkins gets me interested because I think we could use another 3-tech. Poona Ford's making the transition there. I think he's a good fit. He might be Grady Jarrett 2.0. But I don't know as well. So I would certainly like a little more certainty there. But if we're being honest, there's not a lot there right now as we stand because there's so many teams going for it because of the parity of the NFL and where they stand right now. Everybody's cleared out their cap problems for the most part. The only thing that's going to start to generate interest is if a young player comes on and develops in training camp, and then that pushes an older guy out. Like if a pass rusher came into Denver and pushed out Von Miller there, where they felt like, oh, we got Chubb on one side, and then we'll move this guy to the other side. So it's hard to pick. But if I was to just gravitate towards a couple guys that might be realistic options. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore to round out our corner situation. I'm happy if we got to run with DJ Reed and Witherspoon, but I'm not unrealistic in that's an upgrade. Right. I ain't doing the Bill Belichick dance though. You know that sucker comes in and he swindles everybody in the last minute. He gets out a year early on guys and you pay top shelf prices. So I ain't doing that with you, Bill. You get a second round pick. All right. That's it. And that would be my question to you. Would you do this if there was a second round pick on the table right now, salary cap implications not having to be considered, and you didn't have to sign Gilmore to a new contract, knowing you've given up all those first round picks recently?
No, I can't, just because he's a little long in the tooth for me to be excited about that. And again, that means that they're all in on this year and they have to win it this year. So I couldn't go for a second round pick. I understand why the Seahawks would and should, though. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you can get him playing on that 1 year, on that $7 million deal. Because we're sitting, like I told you, we're sitting on 8. You're sitting on additional 10. That's 18 million. People are going to talk a lot about Dwayne Brown and Jamal Adams both looking for contracts. But in actuality, when you sign those two guys to contracts, because of the nature of how you structure contracts in the NFL, you lower down the first year cap hit on both of those guys. Dwayne Brown's at 13.5. Jamal's at about 10 right now. So you're going to save an additional probably $4 or $5 million on the new deals to those guys. That's all comes together at 20 million. So you can still fit a Gilmore. You can fit another guy. Fletcher Cox is a guy that gets me interested as a trade deadline deal, because I think the Eagles are in on believing that they're going for it, but I don't think that they're going to make it there. And they'll be a 1-5 team that'll be like, all right, fire sale time. But that would be a guy that dropped. Anybody else out there? Odell doesn't do much for me. I don't know if the Browns are even willing to move him. We need some help at receiver, no doubt about it. I was in on Julio all day long. I would have been in on that for that price, no doubt about it. Sign me up. DK, Julio, and Tyler as your threesome,
dude.
Like, well, I don't know what
a disaster.
Oh,
for everybody else.
Oh, I know. To me, it was like, why are we not doing this? And I was like, okay, it's going to cost a first rounder, right? It's going to cost a first rounder. Like, no, second rounder and a fourth, and they gave back okay. All right. I guess we didn't need to be on that. That's what'll make me, I'm going to go apocalyptic this year, because if that's the thing about this season is if we don't get past that glass ceiling we've hit for the last 6 years, we've been consistent winners, but we don't get past it. I stand strong on this. As my prediction is that Russell is gone after the year.
Whoa. That's a bombshell right there. Okay. Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with you. Wow. Okay. That's crazy. That's the first Seahawks fan that I've actually heard entertain that idea.
I did the day we drafted Jordan Brooks in 2019. I was doing a draft reaction video at that time, and I've got a meme I've run right now. My last 3 draft reaction first round picks, because I've hated all the last 3 of them, and I just all 3 streams I've lost my crap with it. But with Jordan, I said specifically because we were needing offensive line help at that time. There were offensive linemen that it was a very deep tackle draft, for instance. And I said, what do you think Russell looks at in this pick? You guys could have gotten me. I've been hit more than any quarterback. I've been sacked more than Drew Brees, despite the fact he's played 10 years more than me. What do you think he thinks when he looks at you drafting a linebacker and you got nothing at the offensive line? You got nothing at right tackle. You got nothing really at guard. Do you think he sits there and goes, great, another year of getting the snot beat out of me? And everybody at that time called me crazy, and I got some backlash on it. And I got backlash on it when I mid-season last year started my streams as it was going downhill, and you could see something was amiss. Something was wrong. And I said, Ed, this is going sideways. This is going bad. If this is good, and Russell's not in a good place, and this could, and you're crazy. He ain't going anywhere. He'll be here for the next 35 years. He's going to be Tom Brady, and he'll play till he's 62. And I said, guys, this is coming down the pike. Look at what you're needing. And then now he starts this offseason popping off to kind of back all this stuff that I had as sort of instinctually, like, I think this is where this is going. So I go a little harder on this because I've been since, 2 years ago going, I think this is kind of coming down. I'm feeling this a little bit, this discontent, this I'm not happy. And you can understand why. Being hit, not having an offensive-minded approach, his coach playing safe all the time, not being willing to really push it and let his quarterback. Whereas the thing I related to is Bill Belichick. Him and Carroll are very similar. They don't run a similar defense, but their mentality is the same, right? Great defense, run good special teams, and your offense just don't muck it up. Don't mess it up. But Belichick had the understanding halfway into his career there with the Patriots to go, I got a Hall of Fame quarterback in the middle of his prime. Maybe I should take advantage of that. Maybe I should get out of my old ways, let him throw a little bit more. Brings in the spread concepts from college and one of the first adopters of it in the NFL at that time to acclimate to his quarterback to fit to his skill set. What a revolutionary concept, And so they've been hesitant to do it. The breakup wouldn't surprise me. It pisses me off. This is why I'm not as usually aggressive to say I don't care about the 2 or 3 year plan. I'm usually pretty realistic and going like, you can't play funny money and do it like the Cowboys do, or like some of the Saints. You'll pay the price eventually, and it's going to suck. Yeah. But this is a time where I go, but this is not just for this year. This is for the next 10 years. This is for the next 10 years of potentially Russell being here or not being here, or signing off on this, or I'm done with you. And I think because of that, the stakes are a little higher, and they should be. And I don't know that Seattle's completely embraced that as much as I'd like, but there's more time. There'll be maybe some more guys available for pennies on the dollar around the trade deadline.
Absolutely. And Kyle, don't apologize. He had made a comment earlier that Seahawks fans have been saying exactly what you just laid out there, and not in the Seahawks fans that I know. Listen, I'm from Portland, Oregon, born and raised. So I personally know a lot of Seahawks fans. I've never heard that come out of their mouths. So, I'm not saying that it's not true, but at least the people that I run with and the people that I know, I haven't heard that. So I to hear it from you, I'm definitely shocked.
Frankly, Jay, this is where the local media drops the ball. I don't know how it is in San Francisco. I think you guys are a little more tenacious, frankly, watching some of kind of the Harbaugh thing at the end and how some of those guys, you had one guy going hard at Harbaugh at the end. But I don't think our guys are a little more like, just it's okay. We'll just do what you want us to say. You want us to ask this question? You want it a little more rather than let's, peel back the layers on this a little bit more and try to understand what's going on in the background of this. I'm more of like, we'll just keep everything happy and good. And that's where I was seeing in everybody's calling, but I've had enough people call me crazy in it and saying that he'll never go anywhere. You're out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. Russell is too embedded here. He's part Sounder owner. And I go, yeah, but he also is a big guy in legacy. He's also a big guy, and he literally named his kid Win.
Yeah.
He named his kid Win, Win. That's a guy that's good with 9-7 and getting out of the first round of the playoffs every successful year for now 6 straight years.
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Guy that married Sierra, a pop star, wants, be known for, I was a bit better than mediocre in my NFL career, and I got it 1 Super Bowl. I'm just a lane down from Eli Manning. I think that's going to get stuck in a little craw. And I think that's going to cause definitely some tumultuousness. And we better get this board. We better get this ship going on the thing. It's got to be a conference championship this year, or he's gone. That's the minimum to me.
Okay.
That is the minimum.
All right. So that's a perfect segue because that's exactly what was coming up next. What is a successful season? So you're saying conference championship or bust. If they don't make it there, your feeling is Russell Wilson is out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Okay. And I don't think you're wrong, by the way. First of all, hope it happens because Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson strikes fear in me. I asked you earlier, what do you think when you guys go to line up against Jimmy G? Is there any worry in your heart? And you're like, no, bad matchup. It's absolutely not. When Russell Wilson is on the other side, I don't care who's there. I'm on the edge of my seat and worried the whole time. Time. He is that good and he's that much of a difference maker. So yes, if he ends up gone, hallelujah. I mean, all prayers have been answered because the last thing I want to see is another 8 years of this guy. Trust me, I want him gone. So that's very interesting to hear. I would say on the 49ers side, listen, it would be preferred if they can win a game in the playoffs. But I think just making the playoffs at this point, especially if Lance is the starter, and getting those building blocks going, for me, that would be, personally, that would be good enough. But I think the fan base as a whole would like to see at least one win in the playoffs or somehow get that number 1 seed and make it to that second round of the playoffs. That would be an ideal situation. I think anything less than that, we talk about people leaving. I think that Lynch might end up a scapegoat and he might be let go if they don't make it that far, but we'll see.
Can I say though that I think, because you were talking about a little bit like he might be on the hot seat, and it's rightfully so, Shannon, when you look at the brass tacks of the record and you take that into account. I think you've got to, from an ownership standpoint, with simply the move of getting Lance and that he is your future, you've got to make this, to me, a 2-year thing with Shanahan at that point. That to jump off it after 1 year in the development and knowing that usually with offensive coordinators, especially with the young cats, it's going to take them a year till they get that connection and that bond. And we don't have to talk. I'll just give you a look and you know what I mean for you to do type thing. I would really, with no dog in this fight, say that you look at the Shanahan specifically and you look at the history of them. And I was doing this last offseason as part of my Mac Jones look at, where I was trying to talk myself into why they drafted Mac Jones. I was like going all the way back to Jake Plummer. It was getting gnarly. But you look at them and they've had moments where they have gone for the big prime quarterback, the Robert Griffin, when he was the offensive coordinator under his father in Washington, and it blew out on him because Robert wasn't this and that. And I had made the era believing, okay, that taught them not to go for the 5-star guy, right? That taught them not to go for the magical guy. And that's why they're going for Mac. But what in actuality he did is he said, no, I didn't go for the right 5-star guy. And when you look at the Shanahans and you go trace all really back, I don't really consider Cutler that guy. The last time they had a talent like this was Elway at the end of his career. Not prime Elway, not 80s Elway. Elway at the end of his career running this offense. And when you have that talent, he was dominant running that offense with what was around him. And so I think that truly, as this offseason's played out, is what is in the back of Shanahan's mind. And because that specter exists of that potential greatness, give it that 2 years, no matter what, in my opinion, especially understanding roster-wise, you guys are moving on. Your corner situation is not deep. You said it's okay if you guys can stay out there, but stuff gets injured down. A couple injuries pop up. Not even the most injured team. What if the half most injured team? What if Bosa can only get a half season? D Ford does what he does, which is play like 4 games and then goes, I'm good. Is it summer yet? You know what I mean? Like, and they've got to kind of move through there. And I feel like they're on the right path. They're making the right decisions. It's long term. It's not easy in football doing the long term smart things. It's because it's such a let's get now, right now. I mean, I'm in that mode with my team, but you guys like are just in a little different place. You're in that better place 2-3 years down the line. You guys will be structured better, I think, to go because you'll have a more complete roster if you do it.
Yeah, I don't. So I guess what I mean is, when I say hot seat, that means you got one more year, right? So if they don't win this year, they don't make the playoffs this year, that puts him on the hot seat. He's got one more year to figure it out and make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think it's a 2-year plan for sure. But I also think that Lynch ends up getting let go in that scenario. And, I've seen a couple comments in here saying, no, it's not possible. But let's not forget that when Shanahan got his extension, Lynch didn't get his right away. They took a while on that. And they slow played that situation. They also took their leader on the scout team, as far as draft wise, player personnel, scout team, and Adam Peters, and they promoted him into a position that didn't exist, right? And so I think the writing is on the wall that they wouldn't mind putting Peters in that spot to take that GM role if the 49ers don't win this year. So that's just my personal thought. I hope I'm wrong. I really like John Lynch. I think John Lynch is exactly what this organization needs because Shanahan's not polished when he gets on a mic. And I think that John Lynch is the opposite of that. He's the antithesis. He's very polished and he speaks very well for this organization. And I would love for him to stay, but it's just the feeling that I get.
I know Reuben Foster. Let's throw that. Where has he really gone wrong truly in his drafting or in his signing of free agents? Free agents was a horrible signing. And where has it been really his blemish that they can point to and really pick apart?
Well, I think that's the issue is that Shanahan's the one that's pulling the trigger on a lot of these, right?
Yeah, so it's like Garoppolo that's him signing off. I'm sure he was just like he probably the guy pushing for Lance here. And
yeah, so I think overall, if you just look at the whole time that they've been in place, let's just put it off on Lynch as if it's him, right, for a second. So first of all, they came out this year and admitted that they didn't even really sniff looking at Watson that year that they took Solomon Thomas, and they spent no time at all really looking at Mahomes. So you needed a quarterback, right? You're starting a franchise. The franchise needs a lot of pieces. I understand that. But there are at least one potential at that time. Hindsight's 2020, but Watson at that time looked like he could be a transcendent player. Okay.
He did.
And then you're saying that you didn't even look in his direction. And the plan was to go ahead and probably look at Kirk Cousins in the offseason because Shanahan liked him and was familiar with him. Then you abandon ship, 8-9 games into the season. You go and get Garoppolo. All right. So that's number one. Then you've drafted guys like Mike McGlinchey, who's been okay, but where he was drafted should have been a lot better. You, to your point, traded up and got Reuben Foster. All right. And then you look at a team that was the 4th oldest team in the league last year. They are now the 2nd oldest team. And the whole time before Shanahan and Lynch were here, and including when Shanahan and Lynch are here for the last 8 years, the 49ers are the 2nd most injured team on average out of all the teams. Yet you're taking chances in the draft on players that have injury history. You're taking chances in free agency on players that have injury history. Again, good names, good players, but you're also not getting any younger. I think that all those things encompassing, again, people want to put it off on the injuries, but whose fault is it that the injuries exist? That's my question.
Those solid points, man. I mean, you think Jason Verrett, for instance, a fantastic corner. He's a Pro Bowl corner when he's on the football field, but can he remain on the football field? Can he give you that full season? And and you stack enough of those up. That's the thing too, is you stack. It's one thing to take a risk with a few of those at positional groupings, but to have it proliferated on your roster and then you have injury situations come up, well, it stops being a little bit as surprising as before. And we've run into that too, I think, with our, you go and get Greg Olsen last year at tight end for $1 million. He's broke his foot twice just walking on it on the field, not even contacts. It's probably a good chance it could happen again, but I hope they remain patient, even if they don't get the returns this year, because I think every general manager is going to have a few misses. He doesn't have the major mistakes. The Trent Williams deal, you kept him back into the fold. The building the run-centric offensive line. You guys have, the Brooks kid you guys got out of Notre Dame. I scouted him. Good run blocker. And it's the same thing with Alex Mack. You just need to stay going forward with those guys, because Alex Mack's falling back in pass protection right now. He's still very solid upper level as a run blocker, but pass protection is where he's starting to go backwards. Brooks is a nightmare in pass protection, but if you get him going down, he's a mauler, he's a bear. And Williams is good, but that's where if you guys stay in that pocket, you're good. But I can get that. McGlinchey too he's sort of that. If it was the Broncos in 1996, that would have been a great pick. If you could have the sub 300-pound lineman still and get away with that, but you got to be a little more sand in the pants now. Like, you got to be the 320 guy out there, kind of no matter what, to hold up.
Yeah, absolutely. Seattle Boy says Niners have the worst wide receiver core in the division. First of all, it is arguably the best division top to bottom for wide receiver core. So let me say that. It depends. Yeah. Are you throwing Kittle in that bunch or are you not? Are you looking at pass catchers or just wide receivers? So I think that, there's some room for wiggle there for sure. It just depends on how you look at it.
I mean, let's go through it. I mean, the Cardinals, let's look at this. I mean, I know you've got Hopkins. He's getting older. He's been paid. Yep. He's getting older. He has been paid. Is he as productive now into the second year of his Cardinal experiment when he was trying to shine and show everybody what he could do before? We'll see. AJ Green's done. He's had a fork hanging out of his back for 3 years.
Yep.
Christian Kirk has been an okay average wide receiver. I mean, if I'm picking between Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins, I'll take Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk over that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I see it there. I don't know who else. Am I missing somebody else that they have a receiver that we're not thinking of that they? No. Oh, Rondale Moore. midget throwing to midget on midget productivity on the football field, dude. Yeah, they got Rondale Moore in the draft, so it's going to be 5'6" Kyler throwing to 5'7" Rondale Moore, and we'll see how that works. One guy can't see over one hand of sea of hands, and the other guy's not going to be able to see the ball with the. But I still don't trust Rondale to say that that's above. So they're not. And the Rams, okay, sure, they've got the depth, they got the quality. Woods, Cup, legit. They drafted a guy again this week. They drafted Poo Atwell. He's all right. I think he weighs 150 pounds. You want to talk about? So he weighed at his pro day 148 pounds. I know. So we call him Poo Atwell because that's about what he weighs. That's our nickname for him on the channel. You guys are free to utilize that as you will. But they're good. They got Van Jefferson there. They took him in the second round last year. They're solid. I give them that. And we're too deep good. I got questions about Dwayne Eskridge. I said last three first picks that we've taken, I've had some questions on, and I called LGA Collier a bust the night of the draft. I didn't like Jordan Brooks because I thought his best position is middle linebacker long term. So you're having him play out of position at the will for the first 2 years of his career before you finally move him to his natural position, the middle. And where he's at the will, he's going to be out on that island, and his coverage liabilities are really going to show up, as you guys took advantage of for instance, the final game, that last touchdown you guys scored in the end zone stood out to me, where you guys ran a little of the games, which it throws him off, and you ran a little swing route down to the corner of the end zone, and he gets a little deer in the headlights at times. But Dwayne Eskridge, 24 years old, some questionable hands, absolutely quick, absolutely fast. But there's some issues. I can't rely on him and say I know for sure he's going to be amazing. So, DK and Tyler are good, but, we don't have a super logjam of depth there that we're just running with or running on. I mean, Niners are right there within. Take Kittle out of it. Niners are as much within him, and you guys have put the resources into it. Ayuk's a high pick. Debo's a high pick.
Yep.
It's no surprise.
For sure. Yeah. And, I appreciate that you look at that objectively, because I think people sleep on Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is going to be a problem for many, many years to come. He's a very polished receiver. And again, you're looking at, regardless of what you think of Kyler Murray, Buddy can sling it. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's got an arm on him. And Stafford can sling it. And even Jared Goff, listen, not the best quarterback, but he can throw the ball now. He throws a pretty pass. And then same with Russell Wilson. And Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw outside the numbers. And only 31 times did he attempt a pass over 20 yards in the air all season long. So these guys that have a lot of potential, you're not really going to see it until Lance settles in, because Jimmy just, quite frankly, doesn't have the vision and doesn't have the arm. I mean, they're playing at a disadvantage. It's the whole Kelsey Kittle argument. Listen, if Kittle was with Mahomes, oh my gosh, the things he would do. right?
Yeah.
And if Kelsey's over here, yeah, he's going to have some great seasons, but they're not going to be what they are with Mahomes. So, it's a lot of that. As a receiver, you rely on whoever has the ball in their hands.
I'm not trying to be NFC West. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not trying to be NFC Homer. I didn't realize that this is even a debate. At the best case scenario, they're equivalent pass catchers, and Kittle's a far better run blocker. So how is it a debate between the fact anybody can say Kelsey's better? I cannot even understand where you operate off of even the beginnings of that. That doesn't make sense at all.
Listen, healthiness. I mean, health. Biggest abilities, availability. I get all that, but yes, as just a pure football player, yeah, Kittle is the best tight end.
So. Yeah, the run blocking, literally, legitimately top 3, if not one of the best run blocking tight ends in the game. And you got as a tight end, that's half of your job. So you can't just be the pretty catches coming down the field, 35 yards up the seam. It's got to be the dirty work being done, and he does it. He puts guys on the back. I love Kittle. Absolutely. He's an awesome player.
All right, so we're down to the final 2 topics here.
All right,
rank the head coaches in this division top to bottom.
Top to bottom, head coaches in this division. Well, I am going to be a homer on this. This is the guy that brought the first Super Bowl championship to my city in 35 years. So I think people can give me a little bit of a leeway on this one. But I think that Coach Carroll, though he's not schematically a genius in X's and O's necessarily, he is a motivator. He is a recruiter. He's a guy who understands how to build a football team. I would still put him, because of that, he's missing some of the things I think McVay and Shanahan have above him. Kind of like if we were doing a video game and you've got your plus attributes, and it's like Carroll doesn't have the plus attributes both of those two have in that X's and O's and schematically beating you with easy plays, but he has all the other stuff into his back pocket and understanding, and there's so much value in that to me. I would put him at the top. I would probably put it, man, when you talk about McVay and Shanahan, it's really parsing between 2 of the same tree almost. They're running the same offense. They've done similar. Both of them have been to a Super Bowl with their respective teams. Both of them have consistently gotten good teams on. I mean, even though Shanahan hasn't gotten the wins and losses, he's consistently got the team out there. I would probably put McVay a little bit ahead because he's had maybe a little more success than Shanahan's had. But at the same point in time, some of it, man, with football, this is the thing that I've hit in my head as much as anything. Some of football is you strategically do things as well as you can do them in the offseason. You build your team up as well as you can. And it's a smart plan. It's a good plan. And it all goes to hell because you get injured and it gets decimated. And that didn't mean your plan wasn't smart. That didn't mean if you stack a whole bunch of injury-prone dudes, yes, that's your fault. You can be called out on. But if it's a matter of you've tried to do a mix of things and you've done everything in your grasp, that's football. And it happens. Look at the Colts, right? They get Andrew Luck there for years. Can't do jack, can't get a roster, can't get an offensive line around him. Then they finally build the offensive lineman around him, get the rest of the team ready to go, and I'm going to retire. You know, it's like, they didn't. They finally they're trying to do the right thing. New general manager in there trying to fix what the old general manager did. It's something you can't kind of control. So I that's where I don't go. There's some big difference between McVay and Shanahan. They're to me right there neck and neck, and then Kingsbury's under your. How do I get under the can? Green's like down into here, this section, kind of in the black zone. You can't really see him. You got to look a little bit closely. I think he's lucky. I can't believe he got the job. I don't think he earned it. I don't think he had I don't know. I'm hesitant to say that it's like, oh, is it good? I don't know. I don't know why he got hired. It to me just doesn't make sense. And I think he's going to be out of a job after this year. I've got the Cardinals in last place. You don't win by going for an all geriatric squad. And though you're right, Kyler Murray can sling it. Missing touch. Missing some of the secondary components you got to build within your game if you're going to be a shorter quarterback. We've lived with Russell Wilson, and the reality of living with Russell Wilson, having a shorter quarterback, he's got to overcome things. He's got to learn to work around things that require them to then be creative. They can't just be in a box that you've got to do things that the tall quarterback doesn't have to kind of do. And I haven't seen that. There's something missing with me right now with Kyler. I can't quite put my finger on it. I have a quasi feeling that he's going to next year, if it goes to hell, be like, I'm heading to baseball. But there's something about him that just to me jumps out as saying, I don't see it. I don't quite see it there with him. You know, he's been productive. He's been good in his first 2 years, no doubt about it. But I don't see it. There's something missing. Got a cannon, got a hose, but
yeah. Listen, I mean, I hear that a lot. I personally am a big supporter of Kyler. I think that he's fantastic. But a lot of people say what you say, and I'm not quite there yet. I think that Kingsbury definitely holds him back. I mean, I don't know if you saw that, the diagram of the route tree that Hopkins ran last year and how many curls this man ran. I mean, my gosh, dude, what are you doing? You have the best wide receiver arguably in football, and he's designated to 10-yard curls all season long. That's what you did with him. Come on, man. Like, you got to do better than that. So Sefi says, take those Homer goggles off. Geez, Carroll's the third best in the division. Listen, if he's a Homer, then I'm right there with him, because as far as schematically goes, I get it. Shanahan's really here. McVay's here, and then it's everybody else. But a head coach is so much more than setting up schemes and drawing up diagrams and drawing up plays. And you look at guys like Harbaugh over in Baltimore. Listen, he was a special teams coach, but he has attention to detail. He trusts putting guys in places as far as having an actual offensive coordinator, an actual defensive coordinator, and he knows when to push on his team. He knows when to pull on his team. He knows when to have a tough conversation with a player, and he knows when to put his arm around a player, right? And those are leadership things, okay? And Pete Carroll absolutely has those. He has a ring. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, and I have to agree with you. I think, at least as it sits right now, he's the best until he's not. And right now, he is the best coach in this division, with all those things encompassing. Now, I agree with you. Cliff Kingsbury is way down in the basement. There's no question about it. And I go back and forth with McVay and Shanahan. I think McVay is a little bit better when it comes to the leadership things that I just talked about. But Shanahan has left some things out when it came to mentoring McVay. And what I mean by that is he didn't give him all the tricks up his sleeve, right? Yeah. He is the mentor for McVay. And when push comes to shove, the fact that they are 4-0 against the Rams the last 2 years, even though the Rams last year for sure had a far superior team, and they're rolling out all these injuries and Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and whoever they can get their hands on, and beating the Rams the way that they do, he just has his number. And so I feel like when it comes down to these two, if you need to win a big game, especially if it's head-to-head for that division, I trust Shanahan tenfold over McVay. And so that's why I give him the slight edge there. And then, like I said, Kingsbury is definitely in the basement for sure.
He's in his head. I watched last year. You could see the games that McVay was looking. He rarely looks flustered, but in those Niner games on the sideline, there were some times where he looked a little bit flustered, especially the second matchup I watched. And I was like, boy, he looks a little bit like Shanahan's got his number a bit, where it's just like he doesn't exactly know. And here's the thing I was thinking when you're talking on that. Let's face it. McVay had a lot better entrance, not to draw this out more, but he had a lot better entrance walking in the door at the Rams as far as his personnel there than what Shanahan had. I mean, you had Aaron Donald just to start things off, Whitworth, you had your left tackle, not to mention you had Goff, who, again, you talk about Stafford going from one side of the pendulum to the other. I've been a little bit like that with Goff, where I've started out going, he's not that good, but now I'm just like, hey, you guys, he's not that bad. You're hearing these Rams fans going, hey, our new Messiah has arrived, because Goff's left. And it's like, he could make some throws. He was tough. He stood in there. He's not he's not what I'd necessarily want to, but hey, he's not horrible either. And he had that coming in, a little bit more to work with, I guess, is what I'm saying with that than Shanahan. And maybe that's a little bit more to your point of, when we really get this played out, the longer this goes and the less talented that Rams team, the less first round picks they get to have for till 2036 is the next time they get a first round pick, I think.
It's already been traded. It's already been traded.
It's being chambered. That iron is in the fire. He's got Les Snead's got that hammer back. He's like, who's out there? Come on. Who wants it? It's only 10 years away. So I definitely could see that playing out to where Shanahan is smarter in it. And that's where, again, his Trey Lance's success could be legitimate. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk. I mean, let's put this together. Trey Lance able to have a very simple read. Simple read's going to work. Doesn't need to go to multiple. Why? Because Shanahan's already set this up schematically to work on a given play. Brandon Ayuk, who came out by Pro Football Focus and was rated the best route runner in his final season in college football, comes out and runs a post route perfectly that the cornerback can't read. And because it's also schematically built to be open, it's wide open, bam, home run. Those are the ways. Now he's only got 18 of those throws a game to make. Swing pass here, back to a crosser here, end around here, a couple bubble screens out. And yeah, that's a formula for some success. That's got a lot of possibility of taking off, because Shanahan is a smart guy like that. Legitimately, you make Nick Mullins slice and dice multiple times through the Seahawks defense, like, you're doing something. And everything you said on the Carroll thing is exactly what I would say to it. Football was not always about the head coaches being the guys signal calling. I'm calling the defense, I'm calling the offense. It used to be that's what your job was, as an overarching figurehead, as a guy that was there to keep everything in together and to be in the players and control the game, control the clock, all that stuff. And it's time. It's the clock control, right? It's how they do in 2 minutes. It's how they are as game winds down. And there's so much background stuff those coaches do that we don't even understand as common fans. And their knowledge is like they've forgotten more than we could, ever remember one of those phrases, he's forgotten more than you could ever, type thing. So that's where I land back with Carroll. And he's got Lombardi, which helps.
BMF Ranger says, if I think he's referring to Carroll here, if he's so good, why didn't he run the ball with Skittles Boy in the Super Bowl against the Pats?
I'm really glad he brought this up. Because this is a common denominator, and it's, again, the nature of football. This is one of the reasons I do like analytics to a degree, and I think I see people's hesitance, and I understand it, because football lends itself to having people see 4 plays in a football game and let those 4 plays stick in their brain, and that becomes the truth of a player or a scheme or a team, rather than you have 85 other plays to go off of and look at and say, this was really what the story of the game was over here. But you're looking at this little tiny thing here saying, no, that was what everything was. An NFL game never comes down to one play. Never does. It's always what you've done over the course of a full game that should be taken into account. When you look at that game, the reality of it wasn't that last pass. You look at that last pass throughout the year, we had tried to run on the goal line 6, 7, 8 times to Skittle Boy, as he put it, and we had no success. We got stuffed on every one of those runs that season. So about 7 times you got stuffed on every run, same kind of situation. The Patriots ran out a stacked, heavy front, meaning they added an extra defensive line out there beyond what they normally have. So you had 5 defensive linemen down there. Meanwhile, you'd also run that same crosser route at the goal line 7 times throughout the season. And guess what? It had been successful every single time. So it wasn't about making Wilson the star and not liking Marshawn or them being – it was them playing to understanding what had been successful. What you normally ask coaches to do over the course of the whole game – they were doing then in that moment, and then it was a bad play that happened. But one play doesn't make a player's career or decide anything in that respect, in my opinion.
Well, listen, if we're gonna get on Carroll for that, then the same thing can be said about Shanahan. I mean,
is he a moron for the Falcon situation? Right. Is he completely now all the good that he's done, all the tutoring under his father, all those great offenses from the Broncos to the Washington, whatever the hell we're going to end up calling them, like that all gets thrown out the window because in the last 6 minutes of a football game in which he'd been dominating as a play caller up until that point, he has a bad moment. I think that you can't make that judgment on a play caller, coach, or player, any of that. It's a silly way to look at it, I think.
Well, and even against the Chiefs, I mean, let's call it what it is. They ran the ball 4 times in the fourth quarter, and they were gashing the Chiefs all game long. I get there were some penalties and things like that, but listen, you were no issues running the ball against the Chiefs, even in 8-man fronts. So to stop that, to stop putting the ball in Debo's hands and let him be a weapon, there's some question marks there too. So, it's not all roses over here with Shanahan. So, if you're going to call out Carroll for those things, then you got to be willing to do the same thing with Shanahan.
Every coach has got an Achilles to him. Every coach, I like Carroll's Achilles is he can't keep his finger out of the offensive pie.
Yep.
He has this hubris to believe that he's both a genius on the defensive side of the ball and that he can be a genius on the offensive side of the ball. And no, you can't. I mean, this is what the Rams did that was great with McVay out the gate. Is that they put Wade Phillips on defense and said, "You got defense, Wade. McVay, you got offense. Just concentrate on that." And it allowed him to just lock in. I think the same thing with Carroll. It says every coach has got his little bit of, you got to fight against being a little bit too smart for yourself, Shanahan. You got to just stay with, don't overthink it. With Carroll, it's a matter of just stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Don't keep trying to, like last year we had the Rams playoff game, 3rd and 1, offensive shot, and Heimer calls a play. Coach Carroll goes, "No, I don't like that play." We get a delay a game call. Now it turns into a 4th and 6, right? Game over. And it's like, you got to just shut up and stay out of it and let your guy do what he's doing. That's why you have an offensive coordinator. Trust your people. Trust them. That's being a smart coach too.
Yeah, absolutely. And BMF Ranger, first of all, you're a longtime listener over here, so appreciate the super chat. But again, let's not look at it with 49er goggles. Let's be realistic. That's my only thing. So, all right, let's get down to the best part of the whole thing, and that is ranking where we think these teams finish. Why don't you go ahead and tell me from first to worst what do those standings look like at the end of this season? And how many teams do you believe make the playoffs out of the West?
I think I'm going to say 3 teams make it out of this West.
Okay.
And my reasoning believing, I think that the NFC is as weak as it's been in the last 5 to 10 years this year. I look at the NFC East, it's a joke. I look at the NFC North, Packers, is he going to retire or not? Is Rodgers here or not? Are we really trusting Justin Fields to get them playoffs? I'm not. That defense is going to take a step back. I don't think it's coming out of that division. Then you look at the NFC South, Tampa Bay, and then New Orleans has got Taysom Hill and Jameis finger-licking good Winston as your backup there. Panthers are on the uprise. They got a good defense, but they're not going to make it happen. So I really do feasibly see 3 teams coming out of the NFC West as far as a playoff. I think we're still the strongest division in football because we're going for it mainly. I mean, no division. We don't have a division that sits there and takes its time. Everybody pushing and pushing. So I'm obviously I see the Seahawks being at the top, we won the division last year. I can't see tangibly how we take a step back by even marginally adding at this point, not major additions, but to marginally add on a team that won the division last year, to me still equals out to a team that should win the division again. 12 to 13 wins is right around to where I would see them at that point. Now, it easily can go backwards here where I'd like to see a few more moves. This is not something I feel strong about because I think you need two more men in. You need a couple more guys extra here. We're a man or 2 light right now when you factor in injury situation. Number 2, I tend to think it's going to be fought out right between the Niners and the Rams as far as that spot, and that the records could end up being very well the same record where they're both at 10 to 11 wins, but that I will believe that the Niners have beaten the Rams 2 times the 49ers have beaten the Rams 2 times because Shanahan's in McVay's head. So you'll have a tiebreaker, which would put you to the number 2 spot. But I would see that. And then I think the Cardinals really do fall off because I think that they're going to have they don't have depth. They don't have really enough talent out there to me to really be as much of a threat, I think, as people do. I think Kingsbury's going to come to his end now in conclusion. I don't think Kyler takes a step forward. So I've got them more into like a 4-win. That's how the 3 teams get in, is that they all kind of are able to beat up a little bit then on the Cardinals to soup up the records a little bit.
Okay. Wow. We're definitely at opposite ends of the spectrum here. So let me be clear about this. I think that this division can go 2 separate ways, and it depends on who the 49ers start at quarterback. If the 49ers start Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, they finish 4th in this division. Okay. If the 49ers start Trey Lance at quarterback, I believe that they finish 1st in the division. That's how big of a difference it is. Now, let me also preface that by saying I believe that not 3, but all 4 teams in the NFC West actually go to the playoffs. Remember, we've got a 7th team, and I'm just looking up and down these divisions and saying no other division has what the NFC West has. And I believe that all 4 teams can absolutely make it to the playoffs. So that means we're talking about a game and a half of separation really between all these teams. That's how close that I believe that it is. So going with Trey Lance starting day 1, like I believe that he will. I believe that the 49ers win this division. I believe that the Cardinals actually finished 2nd.
Whoa, look out.
Yeah. I believe the Cardinals actually finished 2nd, and I believe that Seattle finishes 3rd, and then the Rams finish 4th. That being said, again, I said this early on, and I'm going to stick with that. The 49ers may win the division, but once it gets to the playoffs, they are not the scariest team in the West. Okay? Mm-hmm. To your point, it is season number 2 for Lance, but there is that rookie wall with a 17th game season, and teams have now caught up a little bit possibly to what's going on there. Okay? And so I believe that the Rams and the Seahawks are now the 2 teams out of the NFC West that make the most noise when it comes to the playoffs. Yes. So that's my personal thought on it. And that's what I'm going with.
With the Cardinals, what is it? The Watt Hudson edition, basically, that gets you on board with them? Is it that you like what they've been doing recently, and it's kind of a variety of different moves that's gotten you to that point of feeling like they're in that stage?
Yeah, I guess my thought is listen, we just talked about how Cliff Kingsbury is the worst coach in that division, but they've got so much veteran leadership now in all the right places that I believe that's enough to make up for it. And I would like to hope, he said it himself, that this is the year he's finally going to fully schematically put it together in Arizona. We'll see about that, but you can't be as bad as what he's been. So even if he has slight improvement with that veteran leadership in all those right places, I believe that they can make a lot of noise. And I just think that, listen, styles make fights. And I think that they match up very well in certain areas with really all the teams in this division. And at the very least, they can split across the board. And then, outside the division, I think that they can cause a lot of problems for those outside division teams that they play. So
they've got a lot of upper end talent too, that if it comes together and, if the talent can stay on the field, like in Chandler Jones and JJ Watt's case, you got both those guys going at once. That's tough. You can only double block. You can only double up one of those guys. You got to leave one of them single blocked at that point. So, Jesse, please, you're not a jackhammer. So I could see it. The thing about my prediction on this division too is that I'm not rock solidly into it. It's a very fluid situation by this way this goes. 1 or 2 injuries in any direction on any team could move it. And I wouldn't think that about every division in the NFL. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be moved in their division by an injury or two if they sustain it. I think the same thing about Kansas City, even though I think Chargers will be better. I still think, they're not going to, we're a division it's all very tight because every team's been so aggressive in pushing it to the ends of the earth. We'll give up all of our future first round draft capital to the ends of the earth. Like, let's throw it all away for the now. Let's make it happen. So that is going to create a situation where you could get, 4 playoff teams. I could see it. It's not out of the bounds of reason to believe. Not at all. So
Pinor says this isn't going to age well. First of all, Pinor, I don't think you realize, but I control this YouTube channel. This video easily can disappear if it doesn't age well.
It'll just
and nobody's going to believe you. Yeah, so take a clip of it. Make sure that you can throw it out at everybody. But remember that, first of all. Second of all, I think I have some breathing room because I was so heavy on Trey Lance being the guy, and he was, that I could get a couple wrong, all right? So stick with me, Pinor. Stick with me.
Y'all worry that if Lance gets number 1 up there and then, the Cardinals got in division. Yeah, whatever. I got the Lance one right. Like, let's just go. Let's keep our eye on the prize, folks.
Exactly. Listen, Brandon, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. I had a ton of fun. Going into this, I expected 40, 45 minutes. And here we are, an hour and a half into this thing. The conversation was fantastic. I think you are an extremely realistic fan. I love that about you. And, whether it's my platform or yours, we're definitely going to have to do it again. And I hope what we can do is actually maybe some game previews when the 49ers are getting ready to play the Seahawks. 100%. At the very least, let's try to get together then. Maybe when Seattle's the home team, we'll do it on yours, and when the 49ers are the home team, we'll do it on mine, and just give some game previews. As far as his channel, it is down in the description. I'm assuming you're probably not going to get a lot of cross-pollination from the Seahawks fans. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and subscribing to me, and the Niners fans subscribing to him. But listen, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If you want to know what's going on with these teams in the division, it's never a bad thing to learn from the people that are close to that team of what's really going on and to try to get a pulse. So I highly encourage, if you are a part of this channel, to give him some love, go subscribe. And if you're not a part of this channel and you are a Seahawks fan, or you're watching on, let's say, Twitter or what have you, Periscope, come on over to YouTube, search Last Second Sports, give us some love. And, I really appreciate your time, Brandon.
Hey, Jay, thank you for letting me come in here. I echo all your sentiments on that. It's always awesome just talking football. You don't have to be at people's throats or going back and forth. It's just nice. Let's get into the meat of it. And even if we disagree, it's still fun because you're getting to just talk about football as we're getting 10 days out. So yeah, let's redo this again as we get to the season and go back and forth. And all my people, please do subscribe here to Last Second Sports. I'll be posting this up over on my channel too here once we get the record from you. So I think it's you might be surprised. So some of my people definitely. I've got a lot of 49er fans who come into my place too on the other side of it. Yeah. So I think our people are pretty intelligent, and they look to try to round out what their knowledge is and understanding the full spectrum of it. So
for sure. And we're not just a 49er channel. By the way, I've got 3 co-hosts: that Denver Bronco fan, Lions fan, Cowboys fan, and then myself. So we talk all NFL, and we come from a variety of different ranges. So, there's a lot more than just 49er talk going on here. That's for sure.
I love it, man. I'm always down to talk anytime on this stuff. So I appreciate it. And like I said, we'll get you over to my channel here next. So
absolutely. Thank you, BMF Ranger. Listen, I appreciate you. I will end it on giving you some love for throwing some cash this way. And we'll end it here. Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great night.